leadership consistently thinks what makes sense for growth, what makes sense for the ability to respond quickly. And so when you look at the aspects of being able to respond quickly, organizationally, they were very, very supportive and felt like that was a good business direction.
Technology is transforming how we think, how we lead, and how we win. From InterVision, this is Status Go, the show helping IT leaders move beyond the status quo, master their craft, and propel their IT vision.
As we speak to CEOs, COOs, and CIOs, and frankly, other business leaders around the country, we find that there are still a lot of myths about technology. So much so that we felt it was time to bust those myths once and for all. So welcome to our new series, Mythbusters, Cloud, Security, and Innovation. Like the much more famous Mythbusters TV show, we're going to dive into several myths and through interviews, case studies, and data, bust that myth. Follow us over the next 6 months as we share blogs, infographics, and of course, podcast episodes. On the second Monday of each month, we here on Status Go will interview a peer CIO, CTO, or business owner who has successfully busted the myth that we're talking about. 2 weeks later, we will hear from an InterVision expert who will further destroy that myth. Now, one of the myths that we most often hear when speaking with technology professionals in the SMB space is that cloud is only for large companies. Today, we are joined by Troy Collison. Troy is the CIO for Weinstein Properties. Weinstein is a property management firm that specializes in multifamily units and communities. So, Troy, welcome to Status Go.
Hey, Jeff. Glad to be here.
Well, I always love to start with talking with the guest about their background, their career journey. I think our listeners appreciate hearing how other people have gotten to the position where they are today. So share a little bit about your background and your journey and what brings you to Weinstein.
Sure. Wow. I've been in IT a long time and I don't want to refer to the number of years in that regard. Just say well experienced. But I can remember the days of coding HTML and mainframes and all that fun technology. I basically grew up my career within the Richmond space, so I've worked with a number of Richmond, Virginia companies over the years and had opportunities to get exposure both on the infrastructure side and the application development side. So worked within printing industry, worked within healthcare, engineering. And then over that time period, I had, the chance to experience both application development and the whole world that encompasses that and designing requirements and working through all that. And it's certainly a lot of challenges and very interesting. And then on the flip side, I had the opportunity to work with infrastructure side. So this opportunity came open with Weinstein in terms of the opportunity to have exposure to both infrastructure and application development. And so said, hey, let's, it's a new space, certainly for me. I hadn't worked in real estate and property management, but took the leap and it's been a great ride so far.
Excellent. Real estate is an interesting sector to be in, isn't it?
It's
challenges.
Very, very interesting. And certainly the opportunity to see how the space changes within aspects of the economy and how that then impacts. And then certainly there are aspects of regulation and all those different parameters have some sort of impact to how we manage our IT.
Well, and the technology that's used in real estate, especially in multifamily, has got to be fascinating as well.
Oh, it is. It really is. As you look and see my kids, for example, they've grown up they don't need a key, right? They're used to a key lock, right? And
Uh-huh.
nowadays, of course, you have apps on your phone to be able to get into the garage or get into the door. And so as you look at the next generation coming in, what they're used to in terms of Alexa controlling the thermostat, or
Hmm.
the aspect of not having a key, or being able to just give a virtual key for somebody to come up and visit. All those things are dramatically impacting the landscape of
Yeah.
how you have apartment living and multifamily living.
Yeah, I bet it is. I was in the real estate space a number of years ago, but we were more on the retail office space, and even that the technology was changing. But what I'd love to do is do a bit of time travel here. Let's go back in time a bit. And what did the technology stack at Weinstein look like before they embarked on their cloud journey?
Sure. It was a infrastructure very similar to other companies in terms of you had your typical Windows servers, you had Active Directory. So, and certainly you had aspects of Cisco in terms of switches and the routers, and then your wide area network connection, that kind of thing. So it was fairly straightforward infrastructure for an organization that was serving upwards of 400 or 500 people in terms of file shares and
Hmm.
your directory services and other aspects of applications that were housed locally. And certainly, you had the notion that corporate had a centralized data center. That
Yeah,
data center had fire suppression, had obviously the temperature control and management, and then you had your aspects of alerting if the temperature went off, that kind of
yeah,
thing. So, very straightforward in terms of using Dell and a mixture of
yeah.
HP infrastructure to support the various servers that were utilized within the day to day operations.
Was it a company owned data center or was it
Yes,
in a colo?
it was a company owned data center.
Okay.
So
Okay.
uh, the corporate office had infrastructure built out to support
Yeah.
various aspects of what a data center needs in terms of the monitoring, fire suppression, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know from my experience in the real estate world, your cost per square foot of what you're taking up is a big topic of conversation in the real estate space.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. What are you getting for your value per square foot is
yeah,
absolutely
that's right.
something,
That's right.
yeah,
And you're
take into
taking it up with a data
consideration.
center. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, right. Can
Yeah.
we be repurposing it for other opportunities in terms of any number of different areas for securing important inventory, like refrigerant, for example, or
Hmm.
just different things that we would need to be storing mechanical wise, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know Weinstein started a little bit on their cloud journey, but before you got there. But take us through that cloud journey. What were the first things that moved to the cloud, and then take us through what you've been doing since.
Sure. So, what really took place was in-depth analysis of the different capabilities within that infrastructure. So, looking at, like I said, file share, print, Active Directory, email, Exchange, all those different capabilities were evaluated and said, okay, what makes the most sense in partnership with our technology vendor to be able to say, hey, how do we best structure this so that we can implement each component and then obviously test and validate? And so it was a process by which, working on weekends and
Hmm.
overnight, that kind of thing, we would make the move to the cloud for a given set of services and then do a round of validation, take the look for the edge cases, look for those things that, there's maybe some dependencies that you need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
take into consideration, right? If you move this server and this piece of application, they need to make sure that they're in sync, right? So you have to do various aspects of making sure that all those dependencies, when you do test, you're testing what you move to the cloud and not mapping back to the corporate data center. So there's a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
to consider as you go through that. So a phased approach, so that eventually down the you know over time we were able to do the full migration and then have those capabilities all sitting. In our case, we made the decision to go with Azure. uh,
Hmm.
it was a Microsoft environment. It made sense to continue and support that Microsoft infrastructure. We've had good success with that, and it's been uh, stability, the aspects of supporting the various services that we have through, like, Active Directory and integrated to our SSO,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. We just found that Azure was a good fit for us and continues to be a good fit. Uh,
What were some of the business drivers that Weinstein was looking at to move from an on premises data center to a cloud based data center?
I think organizationally, the leadership consistently thinks what makes sense for growth, what makes sense for the ability to respond quickly. And so I've been very impressed from a leadership perspective as the organization looks. They quickly grasp the dynamics to be able to say, hey, if we want to be able to spin up some new capability, we can do that so much quicker from a cloud
Hmm.
perspective. So I think the business tenants were, one, the ability to have dynamic and very responsive capabilities of our infrastructure to meet those operational needs. So that if we wanted to try some aspect of a system or capability, we could respond quickly and put a POC up very quickly, and be able to take a look at it and work with it. And certainly other business drivers are the organization continues to grow and have requirements that systems be up
Hmm.
and be stable, and we don't have a server crash or a router crash, or
Hmm.
some sort of issue, right? And so I think when you look at the aspects of being able to respond quickly, the aspects of stability in terms of what you get with the cloud, organizationally, they were very, very supportive, and
Yeah.
felt like that was a good business direction from a operational perspective.
Was system uptime one of the problems? I'll use air quotes that our listeners can't see. Uh, that the organization was trying to solve with the move to the cloud? Was that an issue that you were faced with?
Some of that was a little before my time, certainly, in the
Hmm.
sense that they did have some issues, classic, right,
Hmm.
situations where you may have uh, spanning tree protocol blow up, those types of situations that certainly would impact. And as today, the organization is now over 60 properties, so having availability of those resources, I think, combined with some of the issues that had impacted downtime, that kind of thing,
Hmm.
were certainly came into play as
Yeah.
a directional reason why we would want to make that kind of move, because of the anticipated stability. And obviously, from a cloud perspective, you're taking advantage of a lot of benefits, in the sense that um, you have those engineers, those knowledgeable staff that are dealing with all, that's their job every day. Whereas
Right.
we're a smaller IT shop, we wear multiple hats. We don't have the time to dive so deep into every aspect of what makes a tier one data center, whether that be the infrastructure of the fire suppression or the air conditioning or heating or humidifying, or whether it be the monitoring and all the different capabilities that are in play there. It makes more sense to be able to tap those resources and understand that you've got effectively a whole team of professionals that's what they do day in, day out,
Yeah.
supporting your infrastructure.
I want to dive more into some of those, I'll call them the intangible benefits that you've gotten out of this cloud migration. But we're going to pause right there and listen to a quick word from Intervision Systems. Intervision Systems is the publisher of the Status Go podcast.
Unlock the power of more with Intervision Systems. We provide the cutting-edge technology and expert guidance you need to take your business to the next level. Don't settle for less. Choose Intervision Systems and discover what's possible. Contact us now to learn more.
And if you do want to contact Intervision, go to intervision.com/myths. That's MYTHS. For information about this series that we're running right now and all of the myths that we are busting. So, Troy, I want to get back to our conversation, and you were getting into some of those intangible benefits that companies realize that maybe that's not their initial driver for going to the cloud, but they begin to realize these benefits. What are some of those that you have encountered that you've gotten from this journey to the cloud?
I think what I've seen is some of the capabilities that are available within Azure. So, for example, directionally, we wanted to move to SSO as a key tenet for the organization. Just ease of navigation, streamline for people, and then certainly we also had a lot of tickets for resetting passwords, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, we were able to use some of the capabilities that came with Active Directory or Azure AD, and the supporting services that allowed us to effectively implement SSO. So a lot of the applications that we use already had built-in connectors with Azure. We could tap and make use of those connectors, and pretty quickly, as compared to my previous experience where we would have to code that in Java and go through the various aspects of testing and so forth.
Yeah.
Fun, and it would work and then not work. And anyway, those types of services are just so valuable for an organization our size, where we don't necessarily have the breadth and depth to be able to dive into the deep technical troubleshooting or issues or that kind of thing. It worked, right? We
Yeah.
went through it, and certainly we had a couple times where we had some things we had to work through, but it most part it just worked, and it was already pre-built. So that's just one example of those base services that we are tapping and making use of, or have made use of, that allow us to just organizationally, we were able to SSO enable a number of applications fairly quickly. It was more of a operational thing than necessarily a technical thing that really impacted our pace, because we were working with people and changing some of the policy and that kind of thing. So that would be one example, and certainly there are many other Azure services that are out there that we're continuing to explore and learn more about, that from the cloud perspective, whether that's better management of our infrastructure in terms of monitoring and logging. Obviously, one of the key ones is security, right? So the various aspects that come in play from a security perspective, and being able to look at our compliance score within Azure that has given us the ability to say directionally, this is where we need to go next in terms of focus for securing the external resources that we have from a cloud perspective. So that just it's just a wealth of information that we're consistently learning and trying to grow in, because it's just so much.
I think that's great. What I hear a lot is that it's giving the SMB access to enterprise grade functionality
Right.
for really a fraction, because you're just buying what you need, and it the speed to implement and the overall cost is incredible. When you think about the cloud and that concept of the shared security model, where I think I've heard it stated as the cloud provider secures the cloud, and the client, or in this case Weinstein, is responsible for securing inside the cloud, right? Their own applications
Right.
and things like that.
Right.
Um, has that gained you? You mentioned compliance and those types of frameworks. Has that gained you some speed in responding to those kind of compliance things? Because the infrastructure side is, quote unquote, again, I'll use air quotes, taken care of. Has that helped in that way as well?
Oh, absolutely. Because if you look at from a perimeter perspective, you have the notion of the network security groups, and they're the way the cloud, at least in the context of Azure kind of clouds, or guides you, is one that it's locked down. So as you want to open up, you have to work through and identify those resources and services, whether it be ports, that kind of thing, that you want to open up. So you're effectively, for the most part, locked down, and you then open up those respective pieces that you want to have as externally, right?
Mhm.
And so that way you're not working with, yeah, these are open and you've got to close everything, right? Which is kind of a different mindset in terms of how you secure and make sure, right? And it's so many aspects, right, that you don't have to think about in terms of, oh, the external router that's connected, they're maintaining the updates and the patching and all those different aspects that come into play with how you manage that network infrastructure, right? um,
Yeah.
Certainly, we make decisions in terms of some of the patching and kind of those types of components of our infrastructure. But there's, when you look at the way the dynamics are set up, it tends to guide you and err on the side of being more secure than being less secure. It would
Yeah.
be at certainly at 50,000 feet kind of level.
Yeah. I like that because I've just been talking with a future guest about zero trust and implementing that, and the whole concept as of trust is a vulnerability. And so I like the concept of it's more secure almost by default, and you have to open things up intentionally.
Exactly.
Approach. The other thing I wanted to touch on, Troy, is innovation, and you mentioned that by moving to the cloud, you're getting access to tools and services that you might not have been able to implement on your own in your own data center. But I'm curious, has moving to the cloud freed up time on you and your team to allow you to focus on more of the business innovation, the wireless access, keyless
Right.
access at the apartments and things like that? Have you had more time to be able to do that?
Certainly, it allows us to focus on those things that are really critical. So whether that be the security of our infrastructure, so as we look at the applications, as we look at those services that we enable, we're able to focus on those aspects of security around them. So, say, for example, we've deployed tablets as a way for our teams to be able to work with and navigate. It's like a, more or less a portable PC, but they can
Yeah.
use those tablets. So, having the the expertise and knowing that the core components have been taken care of for us, right? That we can count on the fact that, hey, those edge routers or that infrastructure that is coming into play is A, secured, it's A, patched, A, it's maintained, means that we focus on the very specific things that we're looking to target to help improve operations. So in the case, like I said, of the tablets, we could focus on the security of the tablets and the monitoring and using a mobile device management platform versus us having to worry about aspects of
Yeah.
our infrastructure or the security of our edge parameter, those kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah. I think to me that was, as I was a CIO in the SMB space a few years ago, that was one of the drivers for us in going to the cloud. Was it really freed up the team to spend time on more on the value add to the business than the keeping the lights on of the infrastructure.
Exactly.
So we're here to talk about myths, right, and busting this myth. Troy, what would you say to a CIO or an IT director of an SMB company if they told you, well, cloud is only for large companies, it's only for the big enterprises? What message would you have for them?
What I would say is take the time to do some of the analysis, and certainly as a IT world where you're looking and the expectation is 24/7 capability, the stability and the security that are just table stakes in terms of expectations from IT these days. I I would struggle to be able to say, hey, can I, in the current world, maintain a data center and all the components around that and really and truly be able to compete with the services and the stability and security that a cloud provider is going to offer. And certainly
Yeah.
there are different cloud providers out there for different levels uh, of, obviously there's the financial, piece
Yeah.
of it,
Yeah.
right? And you do have to think about it from a uh, a capex perspective versus operating expense perspective. There's certainly financially there are pieces and parts of that, and that I could buy a server and I could extend the life of that server, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
control of that, and you're converting the operating. But I to summarize, what I would say is that yes, there's definitely some mindset changes from a financial perspective, but I would say that in most cases, I would think operationally the business would benefit from that foundational increase in stability and security. And as a team wise, you don't have to worry about the fire suppression testing that you have to
Yeah.
do on
Yeah.
midnight on it, those types of things that
Yeah.
come into play, or the validation of so many pieces from an infrastructure perspective.
Yeah, I love that visual of doing the fire suppression testing at midnight on a
Right,
Saturday night,
exactly.
and all of a
Yeah,
sudden
yeah.
you no longer have to do that.
Right, right.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah, I think that's great. I mean that to me for someone in a small mid-sized company, um, not having to do that, and I think what ends up happening a lot of times is they just don't do those things
that's what ends up
because
happening.
they don't have the time or the resources to
Exactly.
do them, and this helps them do that. Well, I want to end with a call to action, and I love how you answered the question about what would you tell the CIO or the director of IT who thought it was for larger enterprises. You said start with assessing where you are and doing that analysis. What's one or two things one of our listeners should go do tomorrow because they listened to our conversation today? What would you suggest?
In terms of from a cloud perspective, if you're not there, I would spend some time just reading and researching in terms of some of the major providers, some of the capabilities. I would recommend, obviously, there's some very large players that are out there, starting that analysis and thinking through from a technical perspective. And then the flip side, I would say, from a business perspective, give some thought to how you would approach that message, whether it's back to your CFO or from a controller perspective. Hey, we want to think about some of the changes in terms of how we budget and how we spend our IT dollars. How would it make sense to convert some of that from an operating perspective
Yeah.
and think through so that we don't have these huge spikes in CapEx expenditures? We can kind of smooth that out. So start that process of thinking through from both a technical and a financial perspective, because I think at the end of the day, making that move is going to be beneficial for so many aspects of both IT and the business, from a perspective of just moving into a technology direction that I think is well supported and well proven these days.
I think that is great advice for all of our listeners out there as they're contemplating either initial steps into the cloud or the next steps that they may be taking. Troy, I really want to take a second and thank you for being on Status Go today. I really appreciate it. I think your experience of moving Weinstein to the cloud really helps other of your peers out there who may be contemplating the same thing. So thank you very, very much.
Great. I've really enjoyed it, Jeff. And certainly if folks have questions, anytime I'm available to discuss our experience and journey.
Fantastic. To our listeners, there you have it. Myth busted. The cloud is an excellent option for companies of all sizes. I think you heard a lot of reasons here today from Troy that it's worth looking into. If you want to learn more and dive deeper into these myths, visit intervision.com/myths. To find the show notes and the interview transcript, go to intervision.com/status-go. The show notes will provide links for Troy and contact information. And if you're interested in continuing the discussion, we've launched a brand new group on LinkedIn called the Status Go Podcast. Look for us there and join the group and get involved in the conversation. This is Jeff Tunn for Troy Collison. Thank you very much for listening.
You've been listening to the Status Go Podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes or get more information at intervision.com. If you'd like to contribute to the conversation, find Intervision on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Thank you for listening. Until next time.